This is what a great song. What a great song for what's going on right now, Susan McDowell.
That whole album is so applicable today.
Is it? Oh yeah.
All the words,
every word.
all the words on that whole album.
Well, it's to me, I see it as exciting times. And of course, we're here with on the Good Intention Show with Susan McDowell. If you haven't figured that out yet,
Good morning.
She's a regular guest here and has been us with from the beginning.
Yeah,
you?
yes.
Yeah, I know.
From
right?
actually the inception, when you first were having the idea and working it out on your computer.
Mm-hmm. And today we're going to be talking about not only what happened in the past, but what's going on now. I mean, there's multiple perspectives people could look at, which we'll get into, and we'll get some business out of the way. But we want to kind of tease you a little bit of the fascinating information you'll be hearing here shortly. But what's the crises is war. There's pain, suffering. The media out of control. The governments are fighting. Politics.
Weather's off the charts.
The chemtrails, weather. I mean, the geoengineering. I mean, everything. It's just the GMO food. I mean, you have so much. What's the word? Deception. Or so much. It is deception in many ways. Disinformation. There's just people are not knowing what is truth. Truth is upside down. Sometimes, whatever it may be.
It's just creating a huge lack of trust about everything and everyone.
It's a world with trust issues at this point.
That's for sure.
Well, one thing you can trust is what we're going to be telling you is we believe it comes from the heart here. So that is something I think is worth in a world of untrust.
The heart is the one place you can always trust.
Absolutely. So a couple things going on before we get into this great topic with Susan McDowell. Is we get the Imagine If program back to work. The gala's over, and we're already planning next year. But now we have to get back to work and make things happen. So the Imagine If program, exactly that makes things happen. It's basically our program that teaches children from 1 to 12th grade how that their thoughts create their reality, how they change their perceptions, they change their experiences. Can you imagine teaching kids that their thoughts come first, their experience comes second, and them understanding that at that age?
Yes. A whole lot of undoing will not be necessary like it was for us.
We are going backwards all the time, aren't we? I mean, it is. I just feel like you get a half a life of just being ignorance is bliss. And then you got the next half of your life figuring out, wow, I could really been here. I made a lot of silly decisions,
Yeah.
And it seems
almost, how do I fix it?
Yeah.
How do I get rid of all the stuff that I gathered along the way that isn't serving me?
Yeah. But I mean, it just seems like it could be an easier way, and it is. By having a different perception at a younger age than our typical world perception we have now, because what we experience at that level is more likely what we'll experience when we get older, and then what we think and believe is what creates our outside reality.
Absolutely.
And so if we're living in a reality of war, distrust, anger, then where's that coming from? It's coming from our old and new beliefs.
It's all coming from us somehow.
Right.
Definitely.
So get online, go to unitedintentions.org and get our program. It's very reasonable, and Jennifer's done a wonderful job putting it together. It's out in schools right now, in home schools, as well as I think some private schools. We're looking to get into public schools, and it's transforming children's lives, and it could transform your lives. I know we have another summer camp coming up here shortly.
And the one thing as parents that you may be interested in, when you learn how to create your reality, which is what this program is all about, it is completely empowering, and it brings all of the power back into yourself, that you're the generator of everything that's happening outside of you.
Right.
So many people are so steeped in fear today, and I don't know how the little children could possibly understand all the stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
But if they get that education about, I create my reality, and they start realizing how that works, that takes away the fear like nothing else can.
And they grow up not being a victim.
Exactly. You can't be a victim and do this.
And create your own reality.
Yes.
Because you're creating your reality. You're co-creating with God. God is all there is, however you want to label that. But you're creating a reality, bottom line, and you can't play victim.
So you take full responsibility for every single thing, and then you don't even start learning how to blame others, which is one of the things we have to undo.
Forgiveness. I mean, God, I wish I knew that younger. And the core principles are: we have gratitude, kindness, respect, integrity, and power, courage, compassion. awareness is all part built in this 5 module program, 15 lesson program. It's a social emotional learning program, which is easy to add on to any type of present system, school system, or program we have in place from first to 12th grade. So it's a complementary program for our system, for our dysfunctional, I should say, somewhat dysfunctional school system, where it doesn't teach you about these type of things anymore. I mean, people don't want to talk about gratitude and kindness, and it's almost like it has to be taught now rather than just expected.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
sad. It's sad in a way.
It should be demonstrated by those
On a-
around you the whole
yes.
way up.
Back and
And so it becomes part of your nature. It's like innate in you.
Yeah. And right back to our crisis of perception out there in the world right now. We have this world in chaos, perceived chaos, because people aren't thinking about kindness and gratitude and
Well,
empowerment and
everybody's so
courage,
steeped in fear
I know.
that they're just acting out all over the place to
Right.
try and quell that fear in any way they possibly can.
Right. Well, I tell you, it is unfortunate, but it's a reality we live in.
It's part of the stage
It's a stage
that we're going through.
Well, let's get into that. So Susan McDowell is here today. We're going to be talking about what's going on right now in the world. And Susan, from your perspective, you're saying the world's a stage and we're just players, right?
That's it.
But tell real quick how people get in touch with you first. And
Okay, my
what you
business
do.
is The Magic Touch. I have a Facebook page called The Magic Touch where most of my radio shows are on there and several articles I've written over the years. But I have a healing practice where I address the whole person, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So I do all sorts of body work, energy work. I do counseling, one-on-one yoga sessions and meditation instruction, anything that helps you become whole and authentic. And also, it's all geared to help you learn to listen to your own inner guidance, which is the one place you can always trust.
Right.
And the phone number is my answering service is my friend Patty, been with me
Live.
25 years. And the phone number is 770-841-0698.
Oh, well, fantastic. And trust me, it's worth, she deals with the person from a holistic perspective, body, mind, and soul, which is the only way to go. That's
Because
not-
we all have all the
I
parts.
know. Because last month we were on integrative medicine. This month at United Intensive Foundation is gratitude. Well, gratitude and focusing on that aspect of it. Last month was wellness, and gratitude is actually a healing agent. I mean, there's certain biochemicals that actually comes and appears when you're in the state of being of gratitude.
Absolutely.
And I think, from forgiveness to appreciation to honoring, all that comes in play and creates these neural pathways and
Yes.
these biochemicals to show up and make yourself feel better.
It's the
raising
good
vibration.
chemicals. It's like the endorphins after a running high, that kind of feeling. And gratitude and appreciation, the more you look at in your life that you can really appreciate and be grateful for, the more you draw to you more things that you will be grateful and appreciate.
Well, how does that work though? Because I'm living over in Pakistan or Palestine and or Israel, whatever, and I'm just hating on each other. Right?
Yes, it's hard to find something to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
but there always is something. I remember Oprah telling a story one time about when she got very low, and it was really hard for her to think of something was going on. It was so hard to come up with something to appreciate. And I don't know if it was Maya Angelou or somebody said to her, breathe. Just breathe and be grateful that you can breathe. And you can just start there. You have a life. It's up to us what we do with that life. Yes, there are people who seem to have far less choices than other people, but you still do have choices. You have a choice of how you choose to view anything in your life. So you have to start with where you are. And if you're really down, you have to find one thing that you can truly appreciate. Okay, I'm alive. All right, things around me are bleak and dismal and everything, but I'm alive and I have a life and I can move forward and I could do other things with this life if I appreciate that I have it. And then maybe find one person that you love. There's usually one person you love, or one person who's been kind to you. Whatever you can truly look at, the last meal that you maybe had was fabulous. Whatever it is, I don't care how small it is, if you can literally get an energy going of appreciation and gratitude for something, soon there, and you have to feel it. The feelings let you know that you really are in the vibration. If you just think it and say it, but you don't feel it, you're not really in the vibration. You're in your head, and that won't do it. That won't create the energy.
It's a disconnect from your emotions and your thoughts, right?
Yeah, so you must connect those for this to work.
Right.
But once you start generating that feeling, after 17 seconds, it starts magnetizing. And the longer you generate that feeling, the more stuff comes to match it.
Is it impossible to be in a foxhole and not be in fear?
No, it's not impossible. There are people that have been in the most horrific, excuse me, situations and find a way to connect with their higher self in that. You know, I'm looking at even all the storms. So many of my friends were in these Category 5 hurricanes. I've heard amazing stories of them going through the peak of a Category 5 hurricane and seeing all these tornadoes out their window that were part of that eye wall. And they found a way to connect with that power, and the after stories are just amazing, and how it can be in those situations where you're connecting in the highest way, you know, because your adrenaline's pumping and everything's moving. And when you are in those kind of situations, you have no choice but to be thoroughly focused in the present moment, which is the key to everything. And you're not thinking when you're in that present moment. You're just being. You're just being. And so you're so connected a lot of the times in those kind of situations.
Well, it just seems like if you understood the law of attraction and that you were able to, like anyway, you go to the worst parts in the world, worst parts in the United States, in the certain cities, right?
Yeah.
And you can see how people are constantly outside influences are under fear of level,
Yes.
right?
Fear always normally comes from outside, the things we're projecting. You know, fear is rarely honestly present in the moment unless you're standing in front of a bear. You know, most of our fear is imagined fear. Fear of the future, fear that what happened to me in the past is going to happen to me again. And that all takes you out of the present moment.
Right. Well, even then, if animals you communicate on a telepathic level, I mean, maybe with a bear, who knows what you could be having a
You
conversation.
can. I'm just saying that is what fear is really given to us for.
Right.
That innate gut fear when we truly are in danger. And that's a feeling in your gut that you have in the moment that tells you run or stay totally still or whatever. It's warning you, that kind of fear.
Well, don't you think now, because of modern technology, Susan, that we're most of the time put into fear because of the news media, because of the entertainment, because of whoever's having a mass amount of reach from technology? Aren't they setting the agenda of what we should believe and being?
Yes, but it's up to us whether we take that in or not. That's the key.
Because your subconscious mind takes in everything, no matter what.
Right.
What are
But
you consciously?
This is why we work on going within and connecting to that higher power. Because when you're really connected to that higher power, you see things from a far larger viewpoint. And you don't go into their opinion of what's happening. You come from the deeper, higher opinion of what's happening, which I would like to.
Like a bird's eye view?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. What are you going to say?
I just wanted to say a little bit about what all this is about in that larger view, now that we're talking about it, because these times that we're in now have been written about and prophesized about for eons of time.
Getting religion on me now. Aren't you?
You don't have to be religious to prophesy something.
You go, girl.
But they talk about these times that were coming, and it's from everywhere. Yes, it's in the Bible, and Revelations talks about it in its own way. The pyramids had things etched into the cave walls that were predicting the future. Nostradamus, if you ever watched, I've read his books, and there's a movie that they made back in the 80s of all his predictions. And it's like watching a news broadcast today. I mean, literally, and at the time he predicted that stuff, we not only didn't have planes yet, we didn't have cars, we didn't have any of the things he was talking about. There are lines, they call them quatrains, in his writings that when you read it, you realize that was the planes hitting the World Trade Center that he prophesied so many years ago, but he didn't know what a plane was. So his description was like a little 2-year-old seeing something new for the first time. So it wasn't called a plane. But when you read it, you can't deny that's exactly what it is.
This object flying in the sky type of thing.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
It is amazing. But now, go ahead.
I wanted to finish that thought about, so what all of these things were saying is in these times, man, and I would go back to, I don't know if it's Buddhist or what, where they talk about the 4 ages of mankind. And we were as we changed centuries, we went into a first age again. We had
like the Golden Age and things like that.
Well, they're named
Bronze Age.
No, it's different.
Okay.
That they talk about it like this. The one we just are coming out of was called the Kali Yuga. It's the end of the 4th age, and what that means is it's the time when man is the furthest, the most separated from his creator. And then the first age, which is what we're approaching, going into now. So we're reaping what happens when you're the furthest from your creator.
You're talking about the cycles of unity and separation.
Yes.
Okay.
So going into the first age is when the energy turns back. Now, we've gone the furthest from our creator, which means we also are looking the furthest outside of ourselves to know what we know. And now we're turning to go within again and reconnect with our creator, which is that Imagine If program is part of that.
Right.
So part of what this is about is everything that's happening in the world. It's all these extremes going to the furthest ends of things. And it's meant to bring people back together, even though first it's separating them.
It seems on a superficial, a first level look, it seems like it's separation and it's only getting worse, right?
Right. And that has to we have to become aware of what that feels like, because nothing feels worse than to be separated from each other and separated from our source within. It's supposed to feel bad. It's supposed to drive you to want to do something about it, which is why people are going nuts right now.
So but you have people are learning through pain then.
Well, right now they are, but this is the paradigm that is shifting. We're going into a new one. So all these things that are happening, and look around and think about this, are all meant to get people to need each other again and to not have the answers that normally solve things for them, and to begin to help each other and depend on each other and come back together. And it's also, everything that's happening is a million ways to force people's hearts to come open again. And that is individual. That takes whatever it takes for each individual. So what you will find in your personal life is this energy is pushing everything up on an individual basis, everything up inside of people that is not part of their truest, highest self. So anything that's in the way, anything you gathered along your way baggage-wise, the things that shut down your heart, the self-protective mechanisms that we have, the self-defense mechanisms that we have, all these things keep you from being connected to your inner guidance and your higher self. So that's really the purpose of all the stuff that's going on. And you look around when we see over and over again all these examples where people have lost everything. And they can't even go to work to replace what they lost yet, on the islands and the different hurricanes and the fires. And so what do? It's like, I'm naked in the world again. Who am I without my job, without my car, without my house that looks this way?
The outside identification of
exactly.
Of things, right?
So it forces several people, many people, to go back to scratch. And first there is utter confusion and chaos. Who am I? What do I do now? How will I survive? All of these are your first,
needs and
yes, yeah.
And so the first thing you do is you focus on why. You look up and say, "Why God?"
Yeah, why me?
Now you're getting back to the source.
Yes.
So it's almost
so
like
it
forces you to get back to source.
Yes.
And
it forces you to take stock of yourself
right.
in a deeper way. And when everything's gone and you've just been through this horrible trauma, I can tell you are so vulnerable and wide open. You feel raw.
That's why they say a lot of people who have a lot of wealth or items or collections, it's harder to, through the needle of the
the eye of the
needle.
Harder to get a camel through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to go to heaven. That's
what it is. It's the letting go of the identification of the objects.
Exactly.
It's harder when you're really engrossed in them and you create your own value based around them.
Yeah. If you think your identity is from those things, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, and I agree. Yes, but you could have all those toys and things and be the most wealthiest person in the world, but still
be
connected to source.
Yes,
in fact, that's what we really want. We want people living that life
exactly
to show you how you can live in abundance and not feel. But when you'll find where most people are very fear-based who have this, and they're so scared of losing what they have.
Yeah, that they're never really happy
anyway. Never really happy anyway because they're not connected to source.
Some of the most fearful people that I've known were very, very wealthy, and they watched every penny, and they did this every time a penny went out, and some of the highest, most contented, loving, joyful people I know have very little. But that is not what matters. Like you're saying, the outside doesn't matter if you have a ton of stuff or no stuff. It's the connection that matters.
And the identification to source more so, or not the identification to source, but connection to source than this connection to outside identification.
Yes. Then you can have any amount of toys and playthings that you ever dreamed of, but you don't hold on to them with a white knuckle death grip
because you believe in abundance, not in deprivation.
Yes, and you enjoy your life and you like sharing that stuff with people, and your identification, who you are. It doesn't matter to you. You know who you are with or without the stuff.
Yeah.
And you be that. And the stuff people can't control you when you're connected to your source. Right. Where a lot of the time people get so tempted with different offers of money or whatever, and they can be swayed because of those things. Mm-hmm. But when you have that connection, that doesn't come up as an issue. You can't be threatened like that.
Okay, so we have billions of people out there in the world right now who are in this transition of going through separation of source and being forced to let go of identification of outside sense of security, right? Because there is no security from the outside, only security
it's
from
false
inside.
security.
It's false security. So they're being forced to deal with this in many different ways. Some very horrific, some very more mild, right?
Right.
Depending on what's the common denominator?
It depends on exactly what you need to shake you loose to get back to this connection.
So it almost seems like it's individual based.
It is,
and it could be higher self purpose why you're here for this experience. It could be just because there are no coincidences, right?
Right.
Even in this circumstance, there are no
you mean there are no accidents? There's tons of coincidences.
Well, everything that has a purpose and reason behind it, right?
Yes.
But just you watch movies like what are some of those movies? Where they D-Day when they land and just random people getting killed and things like that, and it just seems so coincidental. Like
Right.
you just happen to be in the wrong
Oh,
place at the wrong
gotcha.
time. You know.
Yeah, no, there's, oh, I get it. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are no,
Yeah.
there is no accident like that.
And so you have this kind of mentality going on out there in the world where you see, well, this is a good person, and these bad things are happening to this person or to their child or whatever it may be.
Right.
It's like, why would they let this happen? How do you get that a point across to people who want to believe that this is going to be a positive transition? We're paradigm shifting. It looks like pain on the superficial level, but we're paradigm shifting into a much heaven on earth type of experience.
Exactly.
But how do you get that point across somebody who's like, I'm doing the right thing, and bad things are happening to me?
Yes, yes. There's so many ways you can approach that. And there's certain premises that you must change to see this in a bigger way.
Yeah.
And one of the biggies is what you think God is. And if you think God is like a being with a personality who's looking down and making things happen, you know.
He's not some white dude with the
With
beard,
the big beard
in a cloud.
Exactly.
Come on.
So
Susan,
this is so
I'm
many
broken.
people personify God.
Yeah.
And so you just make
Well,
them
many books personify.
of course,
God.
because the books are written by people who personify God.
Yeah.
You know, and that's okay. We can only talk about things as we are able to,
Because we don't know.
as
we
we
really don't
grow.
know. Bottom line,
we
don't
have to
know.
find a way to talk about these
Yeah,
things.
sure.
But as you grow, your idea of God expands, because God is it's constantly expanding, but it's not a personified thing that is doing, and that's why people flip out. How could God kill a child? How could God make this whole country suffer? God is not doing that. It's all of our creation. Because of what, on a soul level, we come in here with certain ideas in mind. And on a soul level, we see this world like from thousands of years of existence and thousands of years into the future. So we know as
It's all happening simultaneously.
Exactly. And we also know as a soul, we are eternal. There really is no death. That is just an illusion on the physical plane that we can die and lose our bodies and all that stuff. But as a soul, you know nothing is ever lost and you keep going on.
But it seems so real at the time because you're saying is we're separated from our source.
Exactly. And so when you're separated, you see a very narrow version of what is really happening around you.
Right. Well, I mean that makes sense to me. Now certain people who personify God, I can't say for sure I know exactly what that's true or not. I mean, it makes sense to me that it's not. That's
Yeah.
more of an energetic issue because we're all energy. But at the same time, if people perceive that, then I think they create their own reality around a personified God.
Exactly. So people find ways, even when they personify God, they find ways to move on.
Yeah.
And
And use
ways
that-
to
still use that
explain
energy
that. Yes.
for
And you can, like in ways like, maybe I don't know what the purpose is, but I know there's always is a purpose. And if I could trust that there is a bigger picture and that everything that's happening is happening for a reason, that is all coming together eventually. But you've got to widen your view and realize you can't just look at this one little pinpoint in time and think that's all there is, because it has been thousands of years leading to these times for many, many reasons. And just as human beings alone, we had to develop parts of our brain to even be able to talk about this. We started out with just being instinctual, I need food. It's, I want sex because that is an innate desire to procreate the human race. So there are certain things that we had to grow through. But initial man, way back when, didn't have the power to reflect. He couldn't look into the future or think about the past. He really was just in the present moment. And you may think, oh, well, why didn't we stay there? But that wasn't the full development of us.
We had a fall.
Yeah, literally, we had to go away from the present moment to develop other parts of our brain, to be able to think these complex thoughts. And
When we get back from break, I kind of want to use a little analogy here of the Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
And how they kind of created history based on this premise, and it turned out to be a false history, of course. You know, And I think that it's a great way of segue into what we can do now to look at this world from a different perspective, because we are in a crisis of perception, not a crisis of reality, but a crisis of perception.
How you see it.
How you see it, and I think we'll get to the bottom of this when we get back from break with Susan McDowell. We'll be right back. All right, we are back, and we're talking to Susan McDowell from the Magic Touch, and we're getting involved in the what's going on, world crisis of perception type of experience that we're most of us, if you're not awake, if you have your head pulled out of the sand and you're not just living for football and living to eat or have sex, whatever the basics mankind and womankind need to have these days, you'll see that there is a lot going on out there, and it seems scary on the superficial level. But is it? If we pull back from a bird's eye perspective and look at it from a more soul perspective, maybe it's supposed to be happening this way.
Maybe it's all leading to somewhere wonderful.
Right, exactly right. So I just think that it's, to me, my perspective is that when like I was saying, the Planet of the Apes before break, how they basically, they saw this broken tower, and this back in the 70s, the new ones are like that too to some degree, but back in the 70s, and they had this broken down, and they use this, this one monkey came back, and it was like, hey, this is our God, right? Whatever it may be, and how we set laws in place around that. It almost seems like religions in general, they pick up a piece of the truth.
Yes, there's always an element of truth in all of it.
And all of them, and then they kind of get perverted by man over time, or get watered down or misinterpreted, and then one group, and that's why you have all like just
the different factions.
Well, just like Christianity alone, you have all these different denominations. I mean, Catholicism, Baptists, and it goes on and on. Seventh-day Adventists, it just goes on and on, and everyone thinks that their perspective is right.
Right. And it is. Everyone is right. It's just they don't realize that everyone is right. It's when we try to make my right be your right where we get in trouble.
Well, and to me that goes right in hand with our thoughts and our beliefs and our emotions create our reality, because whatever you believe, you will create. Your experiment will prove true to you.
Exactly. That's why I say everyone's right, because it's real for them, just how they see it.
And they will get validation, because as you're thinking of something to be true, you will see validation be created just right in midair in many ways, and verify
you will always prove out what you believe. It will be proven out in front of you.
And thanks to the double slit experiment, we know that when we our observer focus on something, we collapse a wave and we create the matter to prove to us that we're the creators, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, if you have a very dysfunctional, or say a very fear-based belief system, you will also create that reality.
You'll see so many more things to be afraid of every day. Right. The more you think about and talk about the things you're afraid of, the more things to be afraid of show up for you.
So how does that work now with understanding that? Say that we just been misperceiving things, or have a little bit of truth here and a little truth there. We probably never really will know until we're out of this three-dimensional experience, right? Because we're not supposed to. If we were supposed to, we would not be separated. Separation is an opportunity for us to grow, to learn either through pain or love, and to have this experience of being human, to feel and touch. And if we knew we were this soul and part of God, and however that works, we probably wouldn't appreciate this experience so much, right? Well,
we actually would appreciate it even more, because that's what we're leading into, is being a human being, being a spiritual being as a human being. So the
purpose is not to ascend, the purpose is descend.
Yeah, it's to really have heaven on earth, literally. That's where heaven exists. Heaven and hell really only exist on earth.
So everyone's thinking that I got to get off planet here.
Yeah. I'm going to leave in this place. This is my last reincarnation.
I'm never coming back.
When you hear people say that, that's completely from a disconnected place.
Yeah.
Because from a soul place, this is the exciting place to be.
I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
This is just the most amazing playground as a soul. But when you get back to that connection with your soul, you can enjoy this playground for the first time fully. And then you become, it's not that people perceive heaven as everybody's in white robes and they're all walking around peaceful. That would be really boring after just a little bit of time. And heaven really, if you're talking about being your full soul self, it's You perceive things, you see colors brighter than they ever were. You hear little nuances of things on levels. Your intuition is at this heightened state.
Because you're not subject to your five senses anymore.
Well, you're using your five senses to the maximum capacity that they are meant. You know how they say we only use that small portion of our brain. When an enlightened being, all that brain lights up. And with that, you are aware of so much more than you ever were. And then all of your talents and your gifts that come through the soul get more and more expanded and larger. Your ability to create and come up with new ideas of things to create. It's like this ongoing bright life, as opposed, it's like going to Oz from Kansas, basically, from black and white to everything in living color.
Well, and that's a great perspective to look at it. But right now in this world, unless we're tapping into our source and we're seeing a much broader band of light from our five senses and expanding our five senses,
yes,
to a multi-being perspective, we're limited to just intellectually knowing that or feeling that to some degree.
Yes.
And so say we take what you say to be true for whatever reason.
Okay, we start with intellectual understanding.
Okay.
I imagine this could be true. It can make sense to me. So that's where you start.
Okay. And then when you're sharing this with somebody who's caught in the middle of this fear and they're in war, they're protecting their lives and their children's lives, and even here in the United States, we're under a certain level of fear of media, GMOs, chemtrails. I mean, there's so much stuff going on. You could lose yourself on that experience.
Easily.
And so many people are getting sick. We know it's because of these toxins and things are coming around.
And also a belief in
a
it.
belief in it, right?
Yes.
Like gurus, they could eat poison and they'll be all right.
Right, drink snake venom and no problem.
But you're dealing with your subconscious brain is 30,000 times more powerful than your conscious brain. So you really have to do work on that to really not allow that to become part of your reality.
Again, we create what our subconscious believes to be true. And we have total control over that as well.
Thanks, parents.
But another thing that's really important for people to understand is on the earth right now, we have every level of mankind present, from almost cave people all the way to Einstein, Jesus, Gandhi, what the highest form of enlightenment that a human being can come to. And they're all okay. Everybody, it's like look at a single human being and saying, it's bad that 1-year-old keeps falling down. Why is he falling down? The rest of us can walk. What the heck's going on? And if you will look at humanity that way, there are some people everybody are in different stages of human growth, soul growth. So we're all passing through whatever stage we need to pass through to get to the next one. So you wouldn't give every person the same advice at all. Most of the stuff we talk about here, most of the people who are listening to us are interested in this subject matter. So that right away shows you they're at a certain level of development and they're ready for more. I would talk completely differently to somebody in a war-torn country that is they just want to know where the next food is coming from. I need a roof over my head. It's a whole different way of dealing with each stage. But the other thing that is really important to know right now is there are more people on the earth today who are in a very evolved state, who are ready to move into this next higher state of consciousness as mankind in general is moving into a new paradigm. So the opportunity today for someone to grow faster than it would have taken many lifetimes in the past at the level energy was at several thousand years ago, that people can move through that in this one lifetime if they are really interested and do what you need to do. And that will be different for each person.
That's fascinating, because you're saying is that each person, because there's a shift in energy, or let's say a more of a a lighter energy
Yes.
here now.
Faster, higher, lighter.
lighter energy here. That's we're experiencing. I mean, it's almost if you had a scientific measurement tool to measure it, you could actually measure the hertz of the
Yes.
collective the frequency is faster than it was 5 years ago. And they're actually there. And you can measure that. I think there is being measured from 8 to 12 hertz collectively. The Earth is
And almost nobody
vibrating
will
at.
deny that they're seeing and feeling this somehow or another.
Right.
Whether you explain it the way we do or not, everyone can see we are bombarded with information from every angle constantly. Our brains are filled with more stuff than ever before.
Yeah. And so it seems like you have two perspectives, you have two choices here, and two ways to learn. One choice is you could deny this if you're not exposed to it, or you could continue with the old paradigm of belief of identification outside and stay separate from source. You'll still move forward, but you'll learn through pain. You'll learn through suffering. You'll learn through anguish to the point where you'll be forced to come back to source.
Right.
Or at this point, you could choose to, I'm going to go with this flow here because I'm probably not going to stop what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to acknowledge that, there's going to be a positive outcome through all this.
Yes.
I'm going to try to focus on me to clear whatever issues I have within myself on an emotional level, on a physical and intellectual level, to raise my vibration, and this time learn through love, not so much learn through pain.
Yes.
So you have these two choices, right?
Those definitely.
Because both are going. We're going in this direction.
Yeah, they're both growing no matter what you think. Right. Everyone is growing no matter what they look like to somebody else.
And this world's going to be vibrating at higher hertz no matter what.
Yes, exactly.
So the bus isn't stopping for us.
Exactly.
So we got to either get outside, we have to either get on the bus or off the bus, but don't get in front of the bus.
Words of wisdom, Tim.
Hey, I'm street, baby. I don't tell you.
That's good. So what to look for and how to do this. The number one tool of growing is meditation. We know that. Meditation is the quickest, fastest way to grow your soul.
Being still, allowing your consciousness to come in.
Yeah, and
just
being
breathing. Being in spirit, too, is more anything.
Well, that's what inspiration,
spirit.
Exactly. And meditation is just bringing yourself fully into the present moment and getting into the still space, learning how to slow your thoughts enough so that a space opens up inside of you. And what that space is where your soul comes in. And what that brings to you is the source of love, the source of true safety, the source of real self-worth. All the things everyone's looking for outside of themselves is all found in there. So, and it's cumulative. And so each time you do it, your connection with source gets a little stronger and a little stronger. And as that grows, these qualities start to come out in your personality, in your life. And one thing that I wanted to talk about is the difference also in the perception of teachers or gurus or mentors.
Yes, because most of us are not going to have the opportunity. Not most of us. I'm a very pragmatic person. Everything's a mirror of ourselves.
Yes.
And so if we could find somebody out there who could help mirror ourselves back to us, then that's a nice way of not so much a shortcut, but an easier way.
Yeah, it can help you grow.
Because we're so blinded by ourselves.
Yes.
It's
hard to see the forest for the trees.
And our problems with ourselves. So you're saying, when we get back from this break, let's talk about exactly that, Susan. Let's talk about how perhaps we could
Mm-hmm.
find people in our life, in our present surrounding, to mirror and grow from.
Yes.
All right. Sounds good. We'll be right back with Susan McDowell, the magic touch and her brilliance. See you then. All right, and we are back with Susan McDowell. We're talking about who we surround ourselves with. Show me your friends. I'll show you your future. So what is it? I mean, why are gurus and mentors and life coaches? Why is that so popular?
Well, because we need to have examples of somebody who is doing this, somebody who has come through what we are struggling to get through, and they're on the other side of it, and they're living a life exemplifying that. And the difference today than from the old days, we used to think that a guru had to go live in a cave and have a shaved head and wear a robe. They speak very softly. They never get mad or upset. And this, again, is outside perception of what a guru is.
The
But-
Dalai Lama.
But
right, yeah.
yeah, but even if, and I was going to bring up the Dalai Lama because he is like a bridge today from the old way to the new way. And the one thing you will notice, see, today people can only have an idea of what they think spiritual is until they become it. So it's all intellectual understanding up until it's direct experience. And that's what you really want, is the direct experience. And it used to be that, and today it's like we're doing this shift. So you still see so many today expecting it to look like it used to look. But if you look at so people think spirituality must be serious. This is important business, people. We got to, clean this world up and make it better. And that is not what spirit feels like. Spirit doesn't feel like there's a crisis. Spirit doesn't feel like all hell the world's going to fall apart if I don't get people to do what I think they need to do. That isn't how spirit works. Spirit is light, joy-filled, love-filled. It is not judgmental. It is not critical. And if you look, why I say the Dalai Lama is such a nice bridge, he is always giggling and laughing all the time. And he can I can interview him and ask some really heavy, serious question, and he will answer it, and he understands the suffering of people and wants to do anything to help that along. But he can go right from explaining why that happens to giggling in the next moment. He never stays on that heavy suffer. He doesn't let their suffering make him suffer, even though he's working toward alleviating their suffering. So you can judge, I don't like the word judge,
Discern.
but yes, just where somebody is at by the amount of joy and love that they exhibit in their real life every moment. And
So you want, if you want to know what frequency they're at, see where they are at that
how much
moment,
love and joy.
in that present moment.
Exactly. And if people, and you never want to pick a teacher. So if you see someone who seems to kind of float through their life, they don't get upset by any little thing, but if they're also not afraid of their emotions, and a fully realized human being will be all of their emotions. If they get angry, they'll and it takes a lot for them to get angry because they do have a very large view, but they don't fight it. There's no resistance. When an emotion comes, you feel it and then it goes.
Humor, huh?
Yeah.
It just reminds me of that Italian movie. I can't remember the name of it, but they were at a concentration camp, and the father and son was there, and he constantly was just telling his son this is all a game.
Oh, yes.
And how he was just making his son laugh all the time.
Yes.
And, he raised. I mean, how do you raise the vibration inside of a concentration camp?
Exactly. But this father knew
Yeah.
the most important thing he could do
For his son's
for
sake.
his son
Yeah.
was to find a different way to perceive what was going on.
Right.
And laughter is the best medicine of
Yeah,
all. I don't
yeah.
care what.
Sure,
Laughter, those wonderful chemicals
Yeah.
that we're talking about go. So if you want to be healthy all the time, true joy and love is the basic bottom line of health. That just is constantly emitting harmony and everything in your body being in harmony and working to its fullest capacity. This all happens from an inner level, how we feel and think and look at things. That directly goes into our bodies.
It's amazing, and it's a perception underneath. Like, this is, again, back to David Carradine in Kung Fu, one of my favorite shows. Right in the midst of a gunfight, he's sitting down in his lotus position, and he's just he's connecting to source,
Yes.
and he's allowing to what his next move is going to be. Do I get up and start kicking butt, or do I sit here and try to persuade somebody not to do something,
Yes.
And so it's almost as if you have to, only way out is to really be in the present moment, connected to source.
Yes. There's that saying, the way out is going in.
Yeah. That is the only way out, is going
Yeah.
in. And so most of us have been conditioned throughout our lives to be the way out is to be looking and looking out. And if I could just get the money, and if I could just get the job, if I could just get the right wife or right husband, if I could just get the right car,
Yeah, then I'll be happy.
then I'll be happy.
Yeah, and my whole life is striving for that end result when, again, the whole thing, the journey is the whole key.
Yeah.
If you could be happy all the way along till you get to the thing, then you know the key.
So what's your advice to atheists, people who don't believe in source?
You don't have to believe in source at all. You could believe in love. You could believe in joy. You can believe in harmony. Those are the same things. You can believe in beauty. You don't have to call it God. You could call it nature. Whatever makes you comfortable. My intuition is the same thing. Just call it what you want. Find what really sits and feels at home inside of you, that when you think of that idea, that feels right and it feels good, But one thing I would, for people starting to,
This
how
journey,
do I
awakening.
break out of myself into new territory? One thing to look for is the way you box yourself in. Almost everyone has a box that they fit into within their own
A
consciousness.
self-prison?
Exactly. And it can be what I think of myself as a mother. I'm a good mother, and then you have a list of what it means to be a good mother. I'm an honorable man, and then you have a list of what it means to be an honorable man. I'm a healer. I'm a spiritual person. And that's the trickiest box of all. That's what I was talking about, is when people are trying to be spiritual. You don't try to be spiritual. You either are or you aren't, and that's in the present moment. And it can shift from moment to moment. And we all know that feeling of when everything feels right. You're in the right place at the right time. Things are going your way. You feel like, I'm supposed to be here. I feel good about myself and life. Then you're connected, And when you're feeling bad or self-doubt, anytime you're beating yourself up, tell yourself right now, I am disconnected immediately if I'm beating myself up, putting myself down, or beating anyone else up, criticizing anyone else, putting anyone else down. Then you know that doesn't feel good. It never feels good because it's not the way Source does it. And that's what you see. When I feel bad, think about what have I been thinking, and then know anytime I'm feeling bad, whatever I'm thinking is different than the way Source views it. So you want to break out of these self-proclaimed boxes. And even, like I said, if you're trying to be spiritual, it is not easy initially. After a while, it gets easier. But to truly only listen and be guided by your inner voice. Sometimes you have to go against what other people think you should do. And even against what you think a spiritual person should do. In each moment, your inner guidance will tell you what you need to do for you in that moment. And the more you do it, the more connected you are, and the stronger that connection gets to, like anything that you practice more and more often, it eventually becomes natural to have that connection. And it feels really odd to be disconnected, but the more you do it, the more you know how to get back to it and keep that going. So you got to break out of these boxes and get back to, in the moment, what do I truly feel? Your feelings are always the key.
And if they have a hard time, I would say, add to that, if they have a hard time connecting to their actual present state of being, their feeling, then just look. If you're so conditioned to look outside of yourself for your self-worth or being, just look outside what's surrounding you. If you have great things that are surrounding you, great people, great friends, great family, abundance, then you're probably
doing pretty well.
You're resonating that within.
Yes.
But if you have a lot of horrible experiences and always a problem, always something going wrong, you're always the victim involved in the situation.
You're always fighting with people.
You're always fighting with people. Then then you're not in the right state of being. And that's a hard lesson to learn, because I've been through a lot lately, and it's just a reminder how I really need to rebalance myself in my own source.
And what people do, most all people, when things feel awful, they think they have to do something about it, and they go out and start hammering nails in everywhere.
Especially alpha,
Yes,
people,
exactly, and that is the peak we're at today, is the doing. That if we have a crisis, it's a crisis between doing and being, and we need to balance our being with our doing. So when you're feeling terrible about anything, don't follow your impulse to get up and go make something happen to make you feel better. The first thing you should do, get by yourself, get quiet, go within for just 15 minutes, breathe, just listen to your breath, bring yourself into the present moment. You reconnect to that inner place inside of yourself. Then, as you come out of that stillness, you might get an idea or feel an impulse. Now, that impulse or idea is now coming from source. So that will lead you to feel better. But the one that comes from your ego that says, I have to fix it, and without connecting first, it's just so inefficient. You go out there and you do a million things and nothing goes right.
And then you gotta spend time fixing up the
what
problem.
you tried to fix.
Yeah. Well, any last advice here before we close out the show here to the people who are in a world of perceived crisis, and what they're some of the basics to do? So outside of just coming back to source, is there anything step they could do?
Yeah, well, that's the first one. Always to go within. Just start a daily practice. And start with what you can really do. A lot of people jump into too much too quick, and then they just say, I can't do it. It's too much to keep up with. So maybe start with 3 times a week, and maybe 10 to 15 minutes a day. And you can just breathe. Close your eyes, listen to the sound of your breath, follow it in and out of your body. As you do this, you have to come fully into the present moment. And then doing that, again, this is going to be its own reward. So do that at a pace that you know you will keep to, and make an agreement with yourself. I'm going to show up for me. This is important to everything else I do in my life, and everyone else is better off when I do it. And then you'll notice that on the days when you do your little meditations, your day seems to go better. You seem to feel better. You notice that thing would have upset me normally, and I feel pretty okay about it. I'm handling it really well. So notice those things. Log it in your brain, because this is convincing yourself this works, and the more you can believe in something, the better it works.
You heard it from the mouth of Susan McDowell, and I'll tell you what, that's some of the best advice you could possibly get. So if you're out there and you're lost right now and you're not sure what you need to be doing, still yourself, connect back to your source, and then allow that your own belief and confidence in your intuition to guide you in the next step. Susan, thank you so much for coming out here. It's been wonderful as usual.
Love you.
Love you.
Love
you
this.
more. Love you back to the moon. All right, guys, take care. We will see you probably tomorrow or Friday. I don't know when. People to tell me what to do. I just show up. Bye.
Bye.